The Bible isn't just a collection of stories about faith and promises. It also delves into ancient conflicts that still impact our world today. Throughout its pages, we meet individuals and events that shaped nations and defined relationships that resonate even now. One such story examines the deep-rooted tension between Jews and Arabs, a rivalry that traces back millennia. What are the origins of this long-standing conflict, and what truths lie beneath their intertwined histories? As we journey through these ancient accounts, we uncover insights that shed light on both historical and contemporary issues. War and peace, as we'll see, sometimes have origins in age-old promises and choices. Join us as we explore this rich narrative. Don't forget to like and share your reflections in the comments for others to read. Our story begins in the ancient deserts of Mesopotamia, where God spoke to Abraham, a man of simple origins, offering him an extraordinary promise. In Genesis 12:2, God declares, "I will make you into a great nation and bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing." This divine promise echoed through the generations, promising not only a lineage, but also an everlasting covenant. Imagine Abraham and his wife Sarah, burdened by years without children, a heavy shadow that lingered over their lives. In a world where legacy and offspring were everything, their hope for a family felt increasingly distant. The promise, once bright, began to dim with the passing years. Sarah, overwhelmed by her barrenness, grew impatient and started to consider a solution aligned with the customs of her time. One evening, Sarah approached Abraham with a difficult suggestion. She proposed that he have a child with her servant Hagar, hoping this would fulfill God's promise. This decision, born out of deep longing and despair, was a reflection of their society's values, where fertility and legacy were matters of honor. In the nomadic world where Abraham and Sarah lived, procreation was crucial for survival and the continuation of family lines. It wasn't uncommon for barren wives to offer their servants as surrogates to ensure their lineage. Sarah, frustrated by her own inability to have children, saw her servant Hagar, an Egyptian woman, as a potential answer to the divine promise they had been given. This was as much a strategy to fulfill God's promise as it was a response to her own pain. Abraham, perhaps more out of love for Sarah than true conviction, agreed. But what seemed like a practical solution quickly turned complicated. When Hagar conceived, the family dynamic shifted. What should have been a joyous occasion only fueled tension and rivalry. Sarah, who thought she could accept this arrangement, found herself overcome with jealousy. Meanwhile, Hagar, once a mere servant, was now carrying Abraham's child and looked upon Sarah with a new confidence that felt like defiance. Their relationship deteriorated as emotions ran high, highlighting the human risks of intervening in divine plans. In her despair, Sarah began to treat Hagar harshly, leading Hagar to flee into the desert. This was more than just a physical escape. It was a desperate quest for freedom, away from the complex, painful situation she found herself in. Alone in the wilderness, burdened by her fate and unsure of her future, Hagar was at her breaking point, contemplating a life without hope. Yet in this moment of solitude, an angel of the Lord appeared to her, delivering a message of hope that would forever change her destiny. Hagar learned that God saw her pain and had heard her cries. This divine encounter transformed her. She left the desert not only as a mother burdened by hardship, but as a woman who had found a renewed purpose and faith. Empowered by the promise she received, Hagar returned, no longer defeated, but strengthened by the knowledge that her life, and that of her child, mattered in God's plan. Hagar no longer saw the desert as a place of isolation. Instead, it became a sacred space where she encountered God's compassion in a profound way. Encouraged by the angel's message, she returned to Abraham's household with a renewed sense of purpose and strength. Though tension remained between her and Sarah, Hagar now carried the promise of a future for her son, a child who represented hope amid her hardship. The arrival of Ishmael brought Abraham immense joy, as captured in Genesis 16. So Hagar bore Abram a son, and Abram gave the name Ishmael to the son she had born. Ishmael, meaning God hears, symbolized the connection between Hagar's suffering and God's compassion. However, this happiness was shadowed by the growing hostility between Hagar and Sarah. The very presence of Ishmael stirred a powerful jealousy in Sarah, who now regretted her earlier decision to involve Hagar in their family legacy. As Ishmael grew, he became both a symbol of God's promise and a central figure in the rivalry within Abraham's household. Hagar's life was consumed by the challenges of being a mother in a hostile environment, enduring Sarah's disdain and resentment. Though she sought comfort in her love for Ishmael, the constant tension made her situation nearly unbearable. Ishmael's childhood was shaped by this complex dynamic, filled with uncertainty and questions about his place in the family. Yet, despite the hardship, Hagar's love for her son was a light amid the turmoil. Ishmael's name served as a reminder of God's attention to their suffering, a sign of hope that a brighter future was possible. And God did not forget his promise. Later, in Genesis 17, when Abraham was advanced in age, God reaffirmed his covenant not only to Isaac, whom Sarah would bear, but also to Ishmael. God declared, "As for Ishmael, I have heard you. I will bless him, I will make him fruitful, and will greatly increase his numbers. He will be the father of 12 rulers, and I will make him into a great nation." This divine promise gave Ishmael his own significant destiny. Though Isaac would be the primary heir through whom the covenant would be fulfilled, Ishmael was also to become the father of a great nation. God's blessings to both sons revealed the richness of his promises, which are woven into different paths. While Isaac would carry forward the lineage that would become Israel, Ishmael was blessed to forge his own legacy, a testament to God's faithfulness to all his children, regardless of rank or origin. In comparing the promises to Isaac and Ishmael, we see an important truth about divine plans. God's purposes can unfold in diverse ways. Isaac's role was to carry the specific covenantal legacy, while Ishmael's promise was a reminder of God's care for all who seek him. Both sons would become symbols of God's faithfulness, showing us that even in the most challenging situations, in history, the birth of Isaac, one of the most powerful moments in the Bible, comes with the long-awaited birth of Isaac, a child promised to Abraham and Sarah after decades of heartache and longing. At the age of 99, Abraham received the divine message that his wife Sarah, now 90 years old and having faced a lifetime of barrenness, would bear a son. Sarah's first reaction was disbelief, even laughter, as she wondered, "Now that I am worn out and my husband is old, will I finally know this joy?" Genesis 18. But what began as laughter rooted in skepticism transformed into pure, overflowing joy. When Isaac was born, the entire household celebrated the fulfillment of a divine promise that once seemed impossible. Sarah's laughter was now a symbol of relief, gratitude, and wonder. She exclaimed, "God has brought me laughter, and everyone who hears will laugh with me." Genesis 21:6. Naming her son Isaac, meaning laughter, Sarah's joy became a testament to the faith that had ultimately overcome doubt. Isaac's birth wasn't only the completion of a promise, but the beginning of God's covenant, setting the stage for the future nation of Israel and the story of redemption. As Isaac grew, so did the tension within Abraham's family. Ishmael, Abraham's firstborn through Hagar, had come of age, and with him came the complexities of their family dynamics. Ishmael's presence reminded Sarah of the struggles of her past, while Isaac, the child of the promise, embodied the future of Abraham's line. When Sarah saw Ishmael mocking young Isaac, her reaction was swift and intense. "Get rid of that slave woman and her son, for that woman's son will never share the inheritance with my son Isaac." Genesis 21:10. This request revealed the emotional strain Sarah felt over Ishmael's position in the family. Abraham, torn between his love for his firstborn and his commitment to Sarah and Isaac, faced an agonizing choice. Ultimately, he honored Sarah's request, though it broke his heart. He prepared provisions for Hagar and Ishmael and sent them into the wilderness, a difficult and heart-wrenching scene filled with the uncertainty of survival. As they wandered through the desert, Hagar and Ishmael faced harsh, life-threatening conditions. Alone and without shelter, Hagar was forced to confront the enormity of their exile. But just as hope seemed to vanish, God intervened once more. In the desolation of the wilderness, Hagar and Ishmael were not abandoned. God's compassion reached them, reminding Hagar that he had not forgotten her or her son, and that a bright future awaited Ishmael too. As Hagar and Ishmael trekked through the desert, the harsh truth became evident. The bread and water they had brought with them were running out. Facing the unrelenting heat, Hagar watched her son, now a young boy who sensed the gravity of their situation. Once surrounded by love and protection, Ishmael now felt the sharp sting of abandonment as water dwindled and hope began to fade. In her despair, Hagar reached a breaking point. She couldn't bear to watch her son suffer any longer, so with tears streaming down her face, she placed Ishmael under the shade of a bush and stepped away, overcome with helplessness. In that quiet moment of sorrow, she cried out to God, feeling an almost unbearable distance from him. Yet in Genesis 21:17, we're told that God heard Ishmael's cries, and an angel's voice called to Hagar from heaven. "What troubles you, Hagar? Don't be afraid. God has heard the boy crying as he lies there." The angel's words were not mere comfort, but a promise of divine provision. "Lift the boy up and take him by the hand, for I will make him into a great nation." With a new glimmer of hope, Hagar looked up to see a nearby spring of water, a life-giving gift from God in their darkest hour. This miracle was more than an act of mercy. It was a profound reminder of God's providence, even in desolation. Drinking the pure, refreshing water, Hagar and Ishmael found strength and hope renewed. In that moment, Hagar knew that God had been with them all along, even when the world seemed bleak. This experience became a testament to God's faithfulness, a symbol of hope reborn through divine intervention. The desert, once a place of loneliness, now stood as a reminder of God's unfailing care. As Ishmael grew, the desert became both his home and his training ground. Under Hagar's guidance, he learned to thrive in its harsh conditions, developing resilience and courage. Skilled with a bow, he became a master archer, able to hunt and provide for himself and his mother. This rugged environment had shaped Ishmael into a strong young man, resilient and resourceful, a true desert warrior. Genesis 21:21 marks an essential turning point in Ishmael's journey. God was with the boy as he grew up. He lived in the desert and became an archer. This verse not only captures Ishmael's evolution into a skilled hunter, but also highlights God's constant presence in his life, guiding him through each challenge and adventure. As he matured, Ishmael's mother, Hagar, began to consider his future. Living alone in the vast expanse of the desert brought its share of hardships, and Hagar wished for her son to find companionship and stability. In their culture, family ties were highly valued, and marriage served as a foundation for alliances and continuity. With this in mind, Hagar took the important step of selecting an Egyptian wife for Ishmael. This decision was significant, carrying deep cultural and historical meaning. By choosing a woman from her homeland, Hagar strengthened a bond between Ishmael's lineage and her own roots, connecting the heritage of Abraham, the Hebrew patriarch, with Egyptian descent. This union was not just a personal milestone for Ishmael, but symbolized a merging of two distinct cultures, Arab and Egyptian, a connection that would echo throughout history. Ishmael's marriage marked a new chapter in his life, representing the continuation of the divine lineage promised to him. His descendants would later form many of the Arab tribes that would populate the region, establishing a legacy that would profoundly influence both biblical and historical narratives. The choice of an Egyptian wife also underscored the diversity and richness of cultural traditions that would shape future generations, connecting Abraham's legacy across different peoples and lands. As Ishmael embraced his new life, he remained rooted in his past experiences. His upbringing in the desert had molded his character and skills, making him not just a talented archer, but a natural leader, resilient and adaptable to the desert's relentless conditions. God's presence remained visible in Ishmael's life, reflected in his ability to overcome hardship, shape his destiny, and find meaning and love with his wife. He became a symbol of strength and endurance, a living testament to God's promises fulfilled through his resilience. Ishmael was more than Abraham's son. He represented a bridge between two cultures, carrying forward a legacy of faith and survival. Through his achievements and challenges, he continued to shape his own story and the destiny of his people, revealing that divine guidance often unfolds in ways beyond human comprehension. As Ishmael's family grew, so did his legacy. He would eventually become the patriarch of 12 tribes, each named for one of his descendants and stretching across vast regions of the Middle East. These Ishmaelite tribes played pivotal roles in both biblical and historical narratives, upholding the legacy of their ancestor and the promises God had made to Hagar and Ishmael. Each tribe had its own customs and traditions, collectively forming a web of kinship that connected families through time. Ishmael's story and the story of his descendants became a lasting reminder of how divine promises reach across generations, and how God's presence remains a constant throughout the lives of his people. One of the most profound elements of Ishmael's journey is his relationship with Isaac, the son of Abraham's covenant with God. Though Isaac was chosen as the child of the covenant, the bond between these two half-brothers remains one of the most compelling aspects of the biblical story. Despite their separation and the tension woven into their shared history, a moment of reconciliation shines through in Genesis 25:9, where Ishmael and Isaac come together to bury their father, Abraham, in the cave of Machpelah. This act was not only a final duty, but a profound gesture of unity, signifying the mending of family divisions and conflicts that had defined much of their childhood. Abraham's burial carried deep meaning for both sons. It wasn't just a farewell to a father, but a moment to honor the legacy he left them, a legacy built on faith, endurance, and divine promise. Ishmael and Isaac, though raised under vastly different circumstances, were able to set aside their differences in this shared act of reverence for their father. This moment symbolized the enduring power of family ties, showing that even amid rivalry and conflict, the bond of blood can unite people for a greater purpose. It suggests that despite the challenges and complexities within their family, love and kinship ultimately triumph, and that even those who seem worlds apart can find unity through their shared heritage. The importance of family connections is a recurring theme throughout the story of Abraham and his descendants. From the promises made to Abraham to the lives of his children and grandchildren, each generation's journey is shaped by love, rivalry, and a commitment to God's plan. Ishmael's legacy continued to resonate, demonstrating that divine promises endure beyond a single lifetime, and that God's care and guidance remain, even in the most difficult paths. The story of Ishmael and Isaac is a testament to the power of reconciliation, even in the face of deep-seated division. Their journey highlights how God's sovereign hand can guide relationships, bringing moments of unity out of discord. As Ishmael grew, God's favor followed him, enabling him to thrive as a strong and resilient figure in the harsh desert. His descendants, the Ishmaelites, would go on to shape the fabric of history, their interactions with the Israelites weaving complex relationships that span generations. Biblically, Ishmael is seen as a bridge between multiple cultures. Though Isaac was chosen as the primary heir to God's promises to Abraham, Ishmael was not forgotten. God assured Hagar that her son would also become the father of a great nation, marking the beginning of a line that would influence the Arab tribes and leave an indelible mark on the region. The Ishmaelites became nomads, known for their strength and resilience, symbols of endurance who intertwined their traditions with other cultures, enriching the Middle Eastern heritage and creating a legacy that endures to this day. Ishmael's legacy remains significant. To this day, Arab communities honor him as their ancestor. In Islam, Ishmael is revered as a prophet, embodying qualities of faith and resilience that serve as an example for generations. This acknowledgement within Islamic tradition, alongside Ishmael's role in Judeo-Christian texts, illustrates the cultural and religious diversity that both Ishmael and Isaac came to represent. Judaism and Islam, two major faiths that emerged from their lineages, each hold distinct beliefs, yet they stem from the same ancient roots. The history between these two lineages is complex, marked by rivalries that have often been driven by issues of identity, territory, and power. The modern conflicts in the Middle East, particularly those surrounding Israel and Palestine, reflect these deep historical tensions. The disputes over land and rights highlight a continuing struggle, one deeply influenced by the ancient promises made to Isaac and Ishmael. But while conflict persists, it is not the ultimate expression of God's plan. His intent has always been love, unity, and reconciliation, a purpose that transcends human discord. The Bible frequently reiterates God's desire for peace. In Genesis 12:3, God promises Abraham, "I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse, and all peoples on earth will be blessed through you." This promise emphasizes that God's blessing was never intended to be limited to one nation or tribe. His love extends beyond borders and binds all people. Throughout Scripture, we find stories of God working to restore relationships, even in the midst of division. Abraham himself, though the father of two distinct lineages, saw God's promises reach both of his sons, showing that God's love remains with us even when paths diverge. This assurance that divine care accompanies all of God's children encourages us to remember that God's grace can lead us to peace. Jesus echoed this call to unity and compassion. In Matthew 5:44, he instructed, "Love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you." This call challenges us to look beyond our differences and recognize our shared humanity, inviting us to heal wounds and build bridges where there were once walls. The vision of reconciliation laid out by Jesus shows that God's love is inclusive, reaching across divides to gather all people into a harmonious whole. In the book of Revelation 7:9, we are offered a glimpse of this divine unity. "After this I looked, and there before me was a great multitude that no one could count, from every nation, tribe, people, and language, standing before the throne and before the Lamb." This vision of diverse voices united in worship is a powerful image of God's ultimate plan, one where every culture, language, and story finds its place in His grand design. For us today, this call to peace and reconciliation is as relevant as ever. Romans 12:8 reminds us, "If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone." This passage urges us to be active agents of change, fostering harmony within our communities and relationships. We all have the power to embody these values by practicing love, compassion, and understanding in our lives. As we look toward the future, we're reminded that God's plan is greater than any human division. He is a God of hope and restoration, desiring to see His creation united in love. The promises made to Abraham, Isaac, and Ishmael are not just stories. They're powerful reminders of God's faithfulness and His enduring commitment to guiding us toward peace. In a world that desperately needs healing, may we carry forward this message of hope, striving to be beacons of light through our actions and our love. Thank you for watching. If this video resonated with you, please remember to like, subscribe, and explore the other videos on this channel. Together, let's delve deeper into the Bible's teachings and discover the timeless wisdom it offers for our lives today. May God bless you abundantly.